Welcome back to Bible is Art, where we're in a series, A Christian Guide to Beauty and Design. And in this week, we're talking about how physical beauty relates to non-physical or interior beauty. One of the tricky things about thinking about a theology of beauty is that we often think about beauty as a physical property, like the beauty of a mountain or the beauty of a woman. But there is non-physical beauty as well. For instance, Peter says there's such a thing as interior beauty, and we all know this. He says, "But let your adorning be the hidden person of the heart with the imperishable beauty of a gentle and quiet spirit, which in God's sight is very precious." So there's an analogous relationship between physical beauty and non-physical beauty. That is, both of these instances of beauty are part of the same genus. They have a similar nature. But to understand this, we have to understand a much more fundamental feature of the structure of the world, and that is that the physical world is the mirroring of the non-physical world. And this is a theme explored by writers as diverse as Meredith Kline and Mathieu Pajot. In his book, God, Heaven, and Harmageddon, Kline says, "Earth, the visible cosmos, was made to mirror the invisible world of heaven." He continues, "The lower terrestrial register, that is like Earth, was designed that it contained replicas of realities in the upper register, glory realm, including the likeness of the God of heaven." He notes that the same word, heaven or sky, it can be translated as both, is used of both the throne room of God as well as the blue thing that's above us. And in that quote, he talks about how there's a king in heaven and there's copies or little images of that king on earth, namely us. These and many more duplicate realities indicate a mirroring, an analogical relationship between these two realms. But it's not simply that creation mirrors God's invisible to us, realm, but also a normative relationship. In the words of the Lord's Prayer, "Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven." We want those invisible realities to be impressed upon earth. That's what we pray for. Pajot describes this pattern as the whole universe can be described in terms of the intercourse between heaven and earth. This joining of spiritual and corporeal realities, called knowledge, is the most fundamental notion in biblical cosmology. In fact, every single phenomenon can be interpreted according to this pattern. On the one end, spiritual reality informs corporeal reality with meaning and purpose. On the other hand, matter expresses spirit by making it visible and tangible in the universe. And this is the same model as with Moses. He was given a heavenly pattern that was to be duplicated in the tabernacle. And while this all might seem a bit esoteric, it's actually the fundamental pattern of basic Christianity. We are to model God. We are made in his image. Our prayer is that God's kingdom in heaven will be duplicated on earth. Now, this composite reality of the invisible reality of God in his realm and the visible reality of earth is duplicated in microcosm inside of man, who is the composite of the invisible and visible parts, soul and body. And by custom, we call that invisible part interior. Humans in themselves embody this union of the invisible and visible. The nature of reality, heaven and earth, invisible and visible, is duplicated in man, the union of interior and exterior life. So it shouldn't surprise us when we see characteristics like beauty that have both an interior and exterior sense. And beauty isn't the only quality that applies to both. Strength is used for both a physical quality and an internal character quality. And this duality allows us to reason in both directions. When we understand something about physical beauty, it will be analogically mirrored in interior beauty and vice versa. Okay, so what can we learn about beauty from this dual nature? Well, beauty is a higher order property because it is a combination, an orchestration of many properties. This is why when you study the history of beauty and art, philosophers and artists will list a handful of aesthetic properties, like, oh, beauty is balance and harmony and all these different things. And while there's debate regarding which properties are included, the one undeniable things that all these thinkers would agree upon is that beauty consists in a combination of multiple qualities. Among them are all the properties explored in this series. But notice that fascinating thing. All of the figures agree that beauty is not just one thing, but it's many things. That's what they all absolutely agree upon. So what do we learn from this? Now, what's interesting is not understanding that fact is one of the main errors of many contemporary artists like Jeff Koons. He's the one famous for making big metal balloon animals. Notice what he did. He just took one aesthetic property, namely size, and made the value like very high. It's just huge. It's the equivalent of taking one instrument from an orchestra and playing one note really loud, or making a whole painting just one color. Oh, wait. Now, of course, these artists would say that the goal of art is not beauty, but such is the way of modern and postmodern thinkers. Endless redefinition, reduction, and at the end, a complete jettisoning of common sense, or what we call reality. But the point here is that the nature of beauty is that it is the harmony of many diverse things. This is why you can have the beauty of a family and the beauty of a country and interior beauty. And this is also what makes aesthetic experience so hard to explain. You take a trip to the Grand Canyon and your friends ask you how it was. You say, oh, it was amazing. It was beautiful. And they say, what do you mean? And you say, it just... And that's because the beauty of the Grand Canyon is the harmonious ordering of many, many things. Now, one quick footnote about what do I mean when I say interior beauty. Now, this is not just moral beauty, that's a major part of it, but it's the beauty of the whole of interiority. So the character of a person as well, and their emotions, the whole interior of the person, and more on that later. Okay, so what can we learn about beauty? What other insights can we gain from either the physical or non-physical side and transferring that knowledge to the other side? Okay, a couple things. First, attractiveness. The most fundamental thing we know and experience about beauty is its attractiveness. We are attracted to beauty. This was St. Thomas Aquinas's probably the most famous definition of beauty. Beautiful things are those which please when seen. Okay, so what do we learn from this? Well, because interior beauty is analogous, it is also attractive, or should be attractive. It's not only good and right, but alluring. The experience of physical beauties draw us, and they are teachers for how interior beauty should draw us. That experience of the draw of physical beauties serves as a sign. And remember the chapter on the objectivity of beauty. That is, when we notice that something's beautiful, we are saying something about it, not us. So when we are drawn to the ominous beauty of the ocean or the exotic beauty of a woman, that experience is the icon of how we should be drawn to interior, moral, personal beauty. Because the interior beauty of a person made in God's image is ever more ominously beautiful and exotic. Those experiences of physical beauties are signs disclosing the truest nature of personal and moral beauty. And just as physical beauty is the orchestration and balance of many elements, so is interior beauty. It's not just obedience to law, but the complex fullness of a good person. Second, harmony. Beauty is the harmony of many elements, and interior beauty is the harmony of many aspects of human character. Now, we already know this and have traditional language for it. We have lists of virtues, as well as emotions. In literature, we call this a well-formed, round character, or we could call it a beautiful character. So the interior beauty that we are drawn to is a complex person made in the image of God with a depth of complexity and variety. And we ought to develop the taste and the tenacity to unfold it. Third, intensity. One distinctiveness about beauty is not only its draw, but the intensity of its draw. Wars were fought for the beauty of women, like the Trojan War, and family feuds diffused, like Romeo and Juliet. What do we learn from the intensity of the draw of beauty? Well, God chose the strongest physical desire to communicate to us the nature of the moral and personal life. Not just how attractive it is, but how obsessively attractive it is. It should not only draw us, but drag us, sometimes to sacrifice, down to Sheol. And ultimately, all of these things we learn about physical and interior beauty have their original form in God Himself. These are all things that we can apply to God because they are the truest form. Now, there's much more to explore here, and I hope I've given you the tools to aid on that exploration. But for now, that is why interior and exterior beauty is art.